If you have fibromyalgia, a chronic illness, or really want to make a change in your life right now, then you really must watch this video. I interview James Tripp, an internationally recognized transformative coach and a master of neuro linguistics. Strap yourself in. This is a good one. Enjoy. First of all, I'd just like to ask you, like I always ask, could you just explain a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, I can, and this is going to be the most difficult part of the conversation for me. So I work with people to make changes in their lives, and that's the sort of simple definition. People go, "Well, what's your job title then?" Well, my job title will depend on where I'm doing the work. So some people know me as a hypnotist. I've got a reputation as a hypnosis trainer. I love hypnosis. And I'm hesitant when I say I love hypnosis, because hypnosis, I do not believe, is one discrete thing that you can ever point to and go, that's hypnosis. That's a complex topic in and of itself. But as an art and craft, let's say, which is what I think hypnosis is. It's an art and craft of working with human beings and human experience. I do not believe there is much scientific, that can really define it. In spite of the efforts of many, many people to do so. So I'm kind of known as a hypnotist. Sometimes I will say I'm a hypnotherapist for ease of communication, but I don't consider myself to be a therapist either. Right.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction. So what I'll say about that is therapy assumes people are wounded somehow or harmed or something, and that what they need is repair. I'm a change work guy. I help people make changes in how they show up in the world, how they engage with the world, the ongoing experience they have as a result. Before we started recording, you were talking about the kind of biopsychosocial model of things. That's a big thing for me.
Yes.
When I say, right. When I talk about how we show up in the world and how we co-create with the world around us, I'm talking about those social elements, what comes our way, not just in terms of things, but the people around us. We're co-creating our lives with those people, and they've all got their personal agendas and things. So we show up in the world, we interact with it.
Yeah.
And how we meet the world, how we meet the moments of our lives, what goes on, that very much dictates our ongoing experience, for one, which is not insignificant in and of itself, and also the kinds of results we tend to get in the world, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm working as a hypnotist, I do a lot of what you might call issue-specific change work. So people will come to me and they will say, James, here's my issue. I want to make some changes around this. Can you help me? Right?
Yes.
And I'll kind of make an evaluation on that. But as long as people understand that I can't reprogram them or control things, I'm very happy to work with anybody on anything. Right. And I'm very confident that we can make changes that will be of benefit to them. For me, it's a red flag when somebody comes in and goes, here's this very specific way I need to be, and I want you to make me that way. And I'm like, well, what is every other way you could be that would also serve your ultimate ends? So I like to have a lot of flexibility when I'm working with clients.
I do like the way that you view hypnosis. I mean, your whole thing is basically hypnosis without trance, isn't it? And I'm
Maybe.
kind of. I mean, I'm going to do a bit of promotion on your book here because
definitely
your book
do that.
here. Must be, I haven't read it all yet because I've only got it recently, but I've read a good chunk of it, and it's really interesting. I do like what you say in it. I like the bit as well about what is it? You say something about you're actually dehypnotizing people, and I know it's not like as simple as that, but what I like about it is most people do walk around or in their life in a sort of state of their own hypnosis. And you can see that when you go around walking around the street, when people glued to their phones, on social media, almost walking into oncoming traffic. They're in a kind of state of hypnosis then, and it's people have this weird perception of what hypnosis actually is, even in a profession, to be honest, and as you say, like you say in the book, we're, most of the time we're in this kind of state of, like hypnosis, our own self
Mm.
hypnosis, the whole time, and
I would say all the time, not even most of the time. I would say all the time.
all the time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason
Yeah.
I would say that is because, we do not ever experience the world as it is.
Mm.
We only ever experience it as our mind is making it up to be in that moment. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean our mind is making it up to be that way from nothing.
Yeah.
It's just that when I see the tram go past my flat, right? I live in Edinburgh. I live right on the
Yeah.
tram line. The tram goes past. When I see that go by, I cannot not know that it's a tram,
Mm.
right? So my ideas about it immediately evoke a whole set of unconscious responses and relationships to it, right?
Yeah.
That I cannot now. I might not think much of that in the moment, but if I was a bat, that isn't a tram,
Mm.
right? So like there's some interesting things. I like to do a lot of idiodynamic stuff, and use hands as metaphors. And there's a nice bit of business. This comes from Ernest Rossi, where you see, just take a look at your hands and just allow yourself to see those as if you'd never seen them before, right?
Yeah.
That's impossible to do.
I've done that, and it can feel very weird. It's almost like
It can
something's had
feel
to be
weird.
connected.
Yeah, it can feel weird because it's interrupting your default sense making of the moment. But what it doesn't do is genuinely put you in a position as if you had never seen it before, right? So,
Mm.
so I think you can do all sorts of things, and this is part of what hypnosis does. It takes people's default relationships to what they call reality and messes with them and
Yeah.
unhooks them, right? And then they sort of become untethered through their default organizations of reality, and they open up to new possibilities in that moment. But at no point are you ever experiencing the world as it is, because you always have perceptions about it. You always have thoughts about it. So you could get two people, they see a rat, someone's pet rat, and one person is like, ooh, and the other person is, oh. And which one's in real reality? Neither of them,
It's their own
right?
reality.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean there is no rat. I'm not saying the rat isn't there, but the rat as it
Mhm.
occurs to them is the rat as it occurs to them. So in that instance, you've got one person that goes, eh, and one person that goes, oh. And there you could say that they're in different trances. They're in different ways of making up that moment in their own mind and their own being.
Yeah.
And how they are making that up unconsciously is what is creating their experience. The rat does not make their experience. The tram does not make my experience of the tram.
Mm.
None of these things make the experience. It's always the relationship to those quote unquote things. I mean, even on a basic sensory level. I remember listening to an interview. I think it was an interview with a quantum physicist who's basically saying, the world out there just isn't the way
Yeah.
our eyes make it up, and they filter things out and they organize it. And he said, so if you step into the road and you see a bus coming towards you, don't take it literally, but do take it seriously. Right? What you see isn't literally what there is in the world. It is how our sensory system is making it up. Then we've got our whole mental layers and all of this.
Yeah.
So we don't want to take it literally, but we do want to take it seriously, because it probably will be better to not be hit by it.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
so we step out of the way. So yeah, so in that sense, in any given moment, we're in a particular experience. And this is why, seeing the work that I'm doing hypnotically, I'm helping people, I often call it reorganize their reality.
Mm.
But it's usually the primary thing is changing our relationship to things,
Mm.
changing how we have them held in our psyche, so
Yeah.
to speak. And the reason I say held, um, I've got a deck of cards here. And if I want to be able to do things with these cards, I need to be quite dexterous with my hands, right? I need to be able to move my hands in a variety of different ways. If I have a singular grip on these cards,
Yeah.
if I hold these cards in this way and it's the only way I know how to hold these cards, I can't do anything with these cards. right? So in order to do something with these cards, I have to first release the grip that I have and then start to explore other possibilities. So for me, a lot of the work around helping people make changes, they're holding different aspects of their life in a particular tight grip
Yeah.
and then going, I hate this thing. I can't do anything with it. But it's like the psychological grip they hold it in. Now, the problem is most people, they're convinced the grip that they hold any given aspect in their life, of their life in, the psychological grip, they're convinced it is the truth.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
the single biggest barrier, is what I call the truth trap. It's people caught up in the idea of what I see is all there is and how I see it is how it is. Right.
Yeah.
So they get bound up in this tight psychological grip that creates a very specific relationship that does not contain within it the possibilities for going beyond the problem. So it's like a lot of it's kind of getting and loosening up. This is why hypnosis, by the way, and hypnotic modalities are extremely useful,
Yeah.
because when people come in, and by the way, trance work, I'm talking about as well specifically, even though my book is Hypnosis Without Trance. And the trance work isn't because like a traditional idea of trance, which goes back to Hippolyte Bernheim, is that trance state renders, not Hippolyte Bernheim, Leo Bolt, his teacher, that trance state renders people more suggestible, right? I don't think that's the value of the trance state. The trance state generally has people let go of their tight grip on how things are,
Changing their
right?
perspective, right? Or even getting to see things from a different perspective in a way.
Right, right. And often the first point of that is to just let go. Just
Yeah.
so I've got that grip metaphor, but I often take that in. If you look
Mm.
at like a lot of classic hypnosis inductions, why this relaxation sort of obsession that comes across? Now, so maybe there's some value in that.
Yeah.
And I think if you think about a grip relaxing or releasing, it's the release, it's the letting go, it's the allowing,
Mm.
right? Now, normally, if you get into somebody's issue, and this relates to, I don't doubt something like fibromyalgia, right, which is a particular diagnosis, and people will end up with a particular set of ideas about what it is, what it means to them, what's possible for them, what's not possible for them. Same as any diagnosis.
Yes.
I've seen, when people get diagnosis across the board, regardless of what it is, PTSD, OCD,
Mm.
ADHD, these are some of the popular ones these
Yeah.
days, you know, the sense they make of that diagnosis is hugely significant in their ongoing experience. I've seen people get a PTSD diagnosis and they experience massive relief.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. I thought I was going crazy, but I just have PTSD. Or I've seen people get a PTSD diagnosis going, I don't know what to do. I've got PTSD. My life is over.
Mm.
So they'll make different sense of it, depending on perhaps their own research or perhaps how the person that did the diagnosis offered them a certain reality, because that's the thing about those who diagnose. They are often authorities, and those who are authorities are hypnotists, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
So they offer people an organization of reality, but they rarely think, is that organization of reality going to be useful for this person? They think they're just talking truth. Oh, I'm just telling you the truth about what's going on for you now.
Mm.
But really they're offering an organization of reality, and they're offering it from a position of authority. This is
Mm.
a huge thing. This is
Yeah.
a huge, huge thing,
Yeah.
you know.
And yeah, I completely agree with you. And even from, I guess, my experiences, well, one with fibromyalgia, from what I've seen, is that if people get that diagnosis, it really is they can affect them in different ways. I mean, personally, when I got the diagnosis, it was a bit of a relief. Like, I never heard of fibromyalgia before. I couldn't even say it, to be honest. When they first said I had it, I was like, fibro what? And
Mm.
but then obviously I then sort of do what I normally do, sort of deep dive into research and what this actually is, and what I can do about it. And
Yeah.
so getting that diagnosis was so beneficial for me, because it was horrible, having all this pain. I had so little energy. I couldn't even get off the mattress in the lounge at the time, because so much pain I couldn't climb the stairs. And it really is like, great, I know what it is now I could work with this. But then I do see other people, they get that diagnosis, and it's like you're saying, it's like, oh my God, I've got this, I'm never going to be able to do this again, I'm always going to be in pain, I'm always going to, and that's what they're focusing on. And of course, we know that what you focus on, your mind's kind of then takes it as a reality, as what it's going to be, and then so your whole energy is towards that. So it is very much what you're, what you take from it, and where you start focusing your energy towards.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah.
So
there's an there's a line that's in the Bible. I'm not a religious person, so I don't think just because I'm quoting the Bible it means I'm especially religious. I'm not. But I love this line, and it is, to those who have, yet more shall be given, and to those who have not, even what they have shall be taken away. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of people read that and they go, well, that's harsh, but it's they believe it refers to something, and it can do, that in economics is called the law of competitive advantage. That means the more money and power you've got, the more easy it is to get money and power, which makes it even easier to get money and power, right? And the less you got, the less you get. But I think there's another take on this. To those who have, yet more shall be given. And to those who have not, even what they have shall be taken away, which I think works on a fundamentally psychological level. Right? If I appreciate, this is a simplistic example, but it works in many realms. So like you were just saying, what you focus on kind of amplifies and you get more of. To those who have, yet more shall be given.
Yeah.
Right? To those who have not, even what they have shall be taken away. That can sound like a negative thing. But actually, if somebody is getting really into a focus in their life, they know what they're doing, they know where they're going, they're on a mission, they start building things, often other symptoms can fall away, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not giving their attention to those things. And I'm not saying it's just this simple. I've seen this a lot because I've worked a lot. One diagnosis that comes across my office table a lot is PTSD, and this has been the case for many years because I worked with a lot of armed forces veterans. I work with police officers extensively, and I've seen people who have got a PTSD diagnosis quite some time ago, but it's not actually been a big deal. And then suddenly it's all a big deal. And when I'm working with those clients, because then I'm not working with them as a hypnotherapist, I'm working with them as a coach. And I often say to them, people come in, they end up sat across from me when things have got on top of them.
Yeah.
Right. And my job is very simple. I'm here to help you get back on top of what you need to get back on top of. And that's a simple frame that I offer right out the bat. But I will often then ask the question, why are you here and why now? Right off the bat, why are you here and why now? That's the significant thing. Why now? Because they're here now because something has changed. They're not here 3 months ago, 6 months ago, right? There's a set of variables that have come together and led to right now. And often I get a story of life suddenly being on top of them, of all sorts of things suddenly being on top of them. And one of the things that has occurred to me is that often the PTSD goes from being a little bit of a thorn in the side, so to speak, to a major oppressive set of conditions when something changes in their life and they lose a sense of their future.
Yeah.
Right. They no longer have a sense that there are good things in the future. They're moving in a positive direction. They're becoming something good. So they lose the future. And then suddenly, now this relates to what you're talking about, because before, when they were focused on their future, not on their problems and limitations, and they knew that they were living into a better future. Yeah, they still had a few problems and limitations. I'm not saying it wasn't there, but it was a minor thing.
Yeah.
But as soon as the future's gone, what becomes the focus of attention? The problems, the mire, the difficulties, and they grow suddenly. And this isn't, as I'm saying this, I'm not trying to say that, oh, so it's easy. All you need to do is turn your eyes to the horizon and look to the future and all of that. It's not necessarily easy, but that is part of what you want to do. You want to know where you're going, where you're headed, what you're creating. And this can be the downside of some diagnoses, or the way people take diagnoses,
Mm.
is some people see it as something that says you can't have a good future anymore.
Yeah.
Right? You've got this, so you can't have a good future. So they shut off unconsciously their good
Yeah.
future. And now all they've got is the pain, the suffering, the problems. There's nothing else. It becomes everything. And to those who have, yet more shall be given. So, the more attention that goes on it, and you have the more kind of situation
Yeah.
that can unfold. And this is part of, you talked about the biopsychosocial thing. That's part of the psychological thing, the psycho, but it is part of the social as well, because that better future is often not just a better future in ourselves, it's a better future in the world, in the social world that we're living in.
Yes.
I think that's a major thing.
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's a couple of things there. Like I think you touched on that resonates with fibromyalgia. I mean, we talk about the BPS bubble model, like that's bio, psychosocial. That's so the biology side of things what are
Yeah.
actually happening in your body, the chemical reactions in your mind, and everything else, and also psychology. So that what we talked about massively already today, but about making those mindset changes and what happens in your brain, and of course social, and social, and all these bubbles. Think of them as bubbles or circles, and they all interweave with each other. And it's knowing where
Mm,
you kind of, if you know where you sit on those, it is quite vital for you to make changes, because they all touch on each other and they all influence it with each other. And and the
absolutely.
social element, and we talked quite a lot about the other ones, but I think you touched on it just then about the social element is to me quite a big thing as well, because it's, you think about people who can cope well with fibromyalgia often have quite a good support network, from friends and
Mm,
from family. It's so sad to see when you see these threads on social media where you've got someone. An example the other day where I saw where this lady basically has got a husband who is resentful for her because now she doesn't work. She can't work because of fibromyalgia. He's having to work more hours, and because it's
mm,
an invisible condition, he just doesn't get it. He basically thinks she's lazy. She thinks that
yeah.
she's bone idle, that she can just get over this. Doesn't really,
Right.
and but so in that sort of situation, you think, how's that affecting her mental health? And of course,
Yeah.
and that just feeds back into that cycle and making all your symptoms worse. So
Right.
if you're never going to be able to break free from any of these symptoms, from for living the life she wants to live from it, because it's just this kind of toxic atmosphere just feeds back into it. I just wonder what your take on all that is.
Well, I have absolutely seen this over and over and over. And I've
Mm.
worked with a lot of clients over, not with fibromyalgia, but you can fit this in with something else
Yeah.
like PTSD or like, interesting, I did find there's quite a high sort of comorbidity with fibromyalgia and PTSD. There's
Yes.
quite an overlap,
Yes, it is.
interestingly. Um, but I've seen this over and over, and I would love to. I think a lot of people in the field that I'm in and you're in, they like to see themselves as like, do I have the skills? Do I have the power? And they kind of look at their own self and think, yeah, I'm a great hypnotist. I can do all this stuff. I can. Like as if the work they do doesn't exist in a broader context,
Yeah.
right? Because it absolutely does, and it always does. And those variables are always in the mix. And here is a thing I have seen from working with hundreds of clients who have got either a formal PTSD diagnosis, or it's not my job to diagnose, but they'd get one easily if they showed up and asked the right person and presented the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and we're not here to talk about PTSD. I do have a lot of views on that and the diagnosis of that and the strength and the upsides and downsides of diagnosis. But what I have seen is the work that I do with people can be incredibly beneficial
Yeah.
and often is incredibly beneficial, but it's always typically way more beneficial for the people that have good supportive relationships in their lives,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
So, like for people who've got that, I can contribute to a bigger picture that really helps them make positive changes. For people who don't have that,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I can't help them, but boy, does it make the work more
Yeah.
challenging, right? So I've seen it. Good, supportive relationships, good quality relationships matter. They make a difference. Something I think I heard this from Stephen Gilligan, but he was quoting somebody else. He said the most healing thing that a human nervous system can experience is another human nervous system.
Mm.
But it can also be one of the most harmful things, depending on what that other human nervous system is doing, how it's being with you, how it's resonating, how it's relating. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things about being a change work practitioner or a hypnotist or whatever. A lot of people look at hypnosis and they go, oh, it's about words, it's about
Mm.
language patterns, it's about this. Well, sometimes it's about other qualities as well, like the qualities of being with somebody and how you're able to be with them. And for some people that I
Action.
work with, yeah, I'm the only person they got that with,
Mm.
right? Now, for other people I work with, they've got that with other people. They've got a family, they've got a good family, and that really contributes and it really helps. And
Yeah.
then you get other situations, you know, some people they're not great. They don't want other people's light to shine for whatever reason, you know. The ego loves nothing more than to make others wrong. Some people have got partners in their lives who don't want them to shine. They want them to stay in their place so they can be,
Yeah.
you know, they can be up while the other is down. And
Yeah.
that is unfortunate that that is the case,
Yeah.
but it is the case. And it does make a difference. Now, as I'm saying this, I don't want anybody who's listening to this to think, well, I don't have a good relationship, so there's no hope for me,
Mm.
right? I wouldn't want anybody to think that. There is. There's also, like, if you start to, and this is a difficult invitation. This is definitely in the easier said than done category. But I would invite you to be open to the possibility that you could have, even if it's not easy to see right now, much richer relationships in your future. That doesn't mean like you find your soulmate around the corner or anything like that, but relationships can always improve in a variety of different ways, and that sometimes that might need to be a part of the picture. I actually work quite often with couples.
Yeah.
As an extension, I will invite their partner in if I feel that they're not like cohesive or there's issues in a
That's
relationship.
interesting. Yeah.
Right? Relationship issues are never insignificant.
Mm.
So if you're a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist and somebody comes in and says, um, literally any issue that they're going to bring in, I'm not saying you should always dive into doing couples work or anything like that, but take something like a lot of hypnotherapists will do smoking cessation.
Mm.
Then they come in, they got their smoking cessation protocol. You know, what is their relationship, their primary relationships? How do they relate to smoking? You
Yeah.
know, are they bound together by smoking? Is Do they have a significant partner that's really keen for them uh, to transcend that smoking, and also in a very positive and generative way, not in a kind of you need to stop smoking, you need to, you know, not in a combative adversarial way. These things are hugely significant if somebody wants to change, you know, a behavior.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to stop drinking, but their partner loves to drink and they want someone to drink with in the evening, that's not an insignificant thing,
Mm. It's
you
not.
know. So partnerships, relationships, friendships, they're huge, you know, and often people that we spend a lot of time with, we think they're separate from us, and they're not. You know, we have a neurological representation of them that becomes part of our own psyche.
Isn't there a saying or something? Something like you are the sum of the five people you hang around with. There's something like that.
Right. I think that's really, you know, really true. Back in December, unfortunately, I lost one of my oldest and closest friends,
Sorry to hear
who's been
that.
a part of my life for such a long time, a very significant part of my life. And I didn't even realize how much of a significant part of my life. It's just like, you know, but you know, I kind of like, I really notice now that he's not there, how
Yeah,
much he was there. Do you see what I mean? Like, even when he
yeah,
wasn't there, he was there. There's so many things that are conversations that I would have had with him that
yeah,
come up in everyday life. And I'm like, oh, he's not there to have that conversation with. And I know how many conversations I've had in the past that have contributed to making up how I am right now. Right? All of
yes,
those conversations have been part of making the me that is now.
yes,
So you know, like we don't see that. We think, oh, I'm separate. I'm an individual. They're an individual. You know,
yeah,
but actually, the people around us are part of what make us up as we are.
yeah,
So so you can't pull it out and just go, oh yeah, let's look at someone's individual psychology. It always sits in a broader network.
yeah,
I'll just say this again. One quick thing about this from a simplistic perspective. Hypnosis is about influence, right? Essentially, when you're working with somebody hypnotically, you are inviting them into a different organization of reality, or that's the way I put it. Typically, people go, well, you're giving them suggestions.
yeah,
Well, everyone's giving everyone suggestions all the time. So, like, if you're a hypnotist or a hypnotherapist, yeah, of course, you sit down with your client, you're well studied, you want to be good at doing that. But their husband or wife is also a hypnotist, their mother, father, brother, sister, whatever, they're also
yes,
influencing them with ideas all the time.
yeah,
You know, so you can't think that you're the only one. So that's worth bearing in mind, I think, as well.
yes, yeah, totally agree. People don't kind of realize, your social environment, what an impact that has, and with that, that is even that goes to work as well. Like your work and how much of an impact that has to people at your work. So
Mm,
with fibromyalgia, no one really knows the sort of real reasons why people get fibromyalgia, but there it does seem that a lot of the time it comes from a, something quite big like a virus, or
mm,
something very stressful has happened in their lives at that point of time. And but I don't believe that. What I do believe is that's a tipping point. That's not the
yeah.
cause. It's not like something's just happened and they get fibromyalgia. But I believe it's the tip. It's the tipping point because there is a this sort of saying that fibromyalgia is your body's way of telling you to slow down. And but it also, why I bring it back to PTSD, because I do believe that it's also a cumulative stress load over time, just building and building and building and building. Carl Smith
Mm,
puts it nicely about the pressure cooker, building and building and building. And it's and then something might happen, and that's the tipping point, and your body, and it's like your mind and body are like saying, okay, enough's enough, kind of thing. And
mm,
so there's great school belief that that's that fibromyalgia is caused by like I say a virus, which of course is stress. Like if it's
mhm.
stress on the body, it doesn't have to be stress. What people think. Like um, in having stressful situations, it's also stressing your body as well.
Yeah.
But this brings me back to the fibro symptom loop I spoke about to you, actually, James, and about how you may have all these symptoms with fibromyalgia, and it could be pain, fatigue, fibro fog, or that's another word for brain fog,
Mm,
and of course lack of quality sleep, not the quantity but a quality sleep. And so these are like the main ones. Of course there's hundreds, not thousands, of other ones, but these all interweave with each other, and each one feeds into the other one, keeping a loop going. But
yeah.
what I believe is the central driver to this, not necessarily what caused it, but the central driver is stress. Stress keeps all these symptoms amplified. And to me, instead of dealing with a symptom like pain, because that's what a lot of people, that's their biggest thing, which of course it would be, because the pain can be
Yeah.
horrific. But instead of just thinking, how do I stop this pain, and then going to the doctors or getting prescriptions of all these drugs to stop the pain. Instead of actually targeting that symptom, think about what is driving it all, and reducing stress load. Again, that could be, in mind, body, will then have a massive effect on the whole rest of that loop. I just wonder what your thoughts on that are.
Well, I got 3 lines of thought, and they're
Okay.
all convergent on what you're saying. And there's a personal line of thought. There's a personal story that relates to this. So where to begin?
We will return to the video shortly, but first I just wanted to tell you about the Fibro Freedom Therapy online course. You see, I created a course for my own personal journey with fibromyalgia, as well as from my professional work as a hypnotherapist and an NLP coach. Through practical tools, science-based strategies, and mind-body techniques, it tackles the core challenges of pain, fatigue, fibro fog, poor sleep, and stress. It's your first step towards the life that you want to live. Also, if you are enjoying this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, and help me grow this channel as a free resource for those who have fibromyalgia. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of this video.
I just recently read a really interesting book that was recommended by my friend Jürgen Rasmussen, called Healing Beyond Pills and Potions by Steve Bierman, MD. MD, obviously medical doctor. And it's an interesting book because Steve Bierman spent 20 years in working as an A&E doctor, as a ER doctor, emergency room doctor, right? So he's just got people coming in, they've got a huge gash, or they've broken bones, or, all sorts of things that people are coming in with. Sometimes they're coming in with suddenly, something that's happened as an acute shift that represents a chronic disease or whatever. But he's got all manner of stuff coming in all the time. And he tells a story as he begins the book, how back in the day, he was just like a medical guy, and he dismissed all of he wouldn't have had any time for hypnosis or suggestion or anything like that. But he had a number of things that occurred that had him start to wonder what was going on. And part of it was that where he lived in, I can't remember, somewhere in California, I think, so maybe San Diego or something like that. But he said that it was regular that people would have barbecues on the beach, and then they'd just throw the coals in and rake sand across the coals. And he'd get people come in from time to time with burns on their feet because they'd been walking on the beach and they'd stood where the hot coals were, and they had blisters and burns on their feet. So he saw that coming in. And then he went on a holiday to Hawaii, and he saw this Hawaiian Huna type or whatever, shaman type, walking on hot coals and having apparently, like he said, for half an hour, just strolling up and down on these hot coals and having nothing on his feet. And he was like, that is wild. He said, but he just dismissed it as a sort of, well, that's some weird stuff. I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe it's a trick, maybe whatever. And then, and this is back in the early 80s, Anthony Robbins just started coming out, doing his thing. And he came around to his town and he did an Anthony Robbins fire walk. And then he saw all these people walking across hot coals, and he did it himself, and he didn't get burns. And he's like, this is weird because I know people get burns from this because I get people coming into the A&E department with burns.
Yeah.
So that opened his mind, and he actually he looked into Anthony Robbins and realized that he was trained by John Grinder. So he went and got training from John Grinder and started to learn how to use suggestion. And initially, he was just using it in the A&E room.
Okay.
And some of the stories, what I find interesting about this book is that he's basically doing things that seem impossible, but he's doing them regularly. Now, either he's lying in the book, which I don't think he is, because he got really into this and he loved it. He didn't come into it as somebody who was an enthusiast. He was amazed by how effective it would be. So he gives examples. He'd get regularly. He would do this regularly, end up doing this literally daily. Somebody would come in with a wound, a cut, and it wouldn't stop bleeding. And he would go to them and say something like this. He'd say, look, I'm going to ask you to do something now, and you're going to think that you can't do it. In fact, you're going to think it's absurd. You might even laugh when I ask you, but I'm deadly serious. And they go, what? He'd go, I need you to stop bleeding. And they would laugh, and then he'd look at their wound, and they'd look, and it would go, boom, 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 stop bleeding.
Wow.
Right? So he's got many accounts of this. Now, he did this kind of thing for like 20 years. He talks about all his approaches and stuff and shares them in the book. But then later on, he's left the emergency room, became a general practitioner.
Yeah.
And he started doing general medical hypnosis for stuff, for a lot of cancers and things. And he has a lot of documented cases of people he worked with going into miraculous remissions from cancer. Okay. He's still a doctor. He's not there claiming. And he also says he's got what he calls a sort of multi-cause model. His model is quite complex, but it is basically a biopsychosocial model. He's saying that you've got biological factors. So one thing that is a classic with hypnosis is the ability to treat warts, right? This is almost like, legendary in hypnosis. And I did it myself relatively recently with verrucas that I've had for 20 years. Right.
Okay.
I've recently got rid of them. Maybe it's coincidence. I'm always open to the possibility, but it's a pretty crazy coincidence that I got rid of them using self-hypnosis. Right. Now, that doesn't mean, now we know that verrucas are caused by like an HPV virus. It doesn't mean that the virus isn't there, or they're caused by it. Or let's say that is part of the factor. Why is it that like HPV virus, same one, some people get warts on their hands, some on their feet? Their immune system seems to be able to kind of isolate them. Why is it you can apparently quite consistently make them disappear, right? With hypnotic interventions. They respond extremely well. So these are curious things. Nobody's saying, oh, it turns out it wasn't the HPV virus. It was some psychological factor. Right. And by the way, this is still mystery. Steve Bierman's not saying, I know the exact cause. How the heck can you talk to somebody and have their immune system respond?
Yeah.
We don't know how that happens, but it seems that it can and it does happen. So one of the factorial elements for him are the ideas, the concepts, the way we're making sense. Also, the things that are going on. Yes, we have viruses and bacteria and all sorts of stuff that comes and attacks us. And our immune system and our body can respond to those in a variety of different ways. Apparently so. Now, Steve Bierman basically, he has this model and he talks about a gyroscope. And like, if you get a gyroscope with a really strong, good spin, you can go and flick it, knock it, whack it, and it'll just wobble and right itself. It'll wobble and right itself because the spin of the gyroscope is good and it's strong.
Okay.
Right. Now, if the spin becomes weak, then something can knock the gyroscope and it'll go over because the spin is weak. Now, the question is, so what caused the gyroscope to fall? Was it the knock or was it the weak spin? Right. So he's got this gyroscope model now. This reminded me of something from Chinese medicine and Taoist internal alchemy stuff, which I have an interest in from back in the day. So there's a model from sort of Taoist medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, of what they call pre-birth qi versus post-birth qi, right? Now, I want to just say to anybody who's listening to this, who's very scientifically minded, these aren't scientific claims. This is a different culture's way of making sense of reality.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. So we're not saying that qi really is a certain thing or isn't. This is their conceptual system for making sense of reality.
Yeah.
And it actually, when you hear this model, it's like, oh yeah, I kind of get that. So chi here, we could call your life force, right? Your basic vitality or something like that.
Yeah.
And in Chinese medicine, there's an idea that some people are born with a lot of qi, what's called pre-birth qi, i.e. you come into the world with it. In the West, we might have called it your constitution. You have a strong constitution,
Yeah.
right? I remember, what's the guy called? Robert Kennedy Jr., who became Trump's
Mm.
he was originally running as an independent against Trump, and then he kind of like accepted a job as Trump's health secretary or whatever. But like I remember him saying that Trump blew his mind because Trump hardly slept and ate nothing but junk food, but had boundless energy. Right
Mm.
now, in Taoist terms, you go, he had a lot of pre-birth chi. He doesn't apparently have to look after his health at all. He just keeps going. He keeps going. He keeps going.
Yeah.
Now, in this sort of model, it's like, well, if you have a lot of pre-birth chi, you don't have to do much. Look after your health. You can take all sorts of stressors, right? You can take
Yeah.
endless stressors, no sleep, junk food, you know, high stakes deals, whatever's going on, and you just kind of wear it,
Mm.
you know. So whatever we might say about Trump, and I don't think there's too many fans left. Maybe there are some diehard fans left, but you know, the guy's probably got a heck of a constitution. He can like ride a lot of stress, take it, whatever. And maybe there's psychological factors to that as well. Maybe there's ways that he meets things where it's like, you know, that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. Doesn't take anything too seriously,
Mm.
perhaps. And I'm just guessing. You know, so the idea is you either have a lot of pre-birth chi, in which case you can keep going, or if you don't, you have to rely on what's called post-birth chi. Now, post-birth chi, post-birth vital force comes from what you eat,
Yeah.
what kind of exercise you do, how you treat yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So in this model, you can come into the world with a lot of pre-birth chi, and you can go and you can go and you can go. And maybe you get through your whole line. Or maybe you deplete that
Mm.
as you go. Right.
Yeah.
Now that so going back to Steve Bierman's model, the spin of the gyroscope becomes weak.
Yes.
And now you have to be a little bit careful about what you do, because you don't get to do what you used to do. You now have to be a bit careful. Now, what Steve Bierman points out is you can bring that spin back up to strength.
Yeah.
So a lot of what he's doing when he's working with cancer and stuff like that is he's looking to bring that spin back up to strength using, of course, like he's a medical doctor. He uses his best understandings of medically what can be made use of. He's also looking at social factors and psychological factors, and he's also looking at other lifestyle factors,
Yeah.
right? Now, there's a kind of personal take on this because I had a few things occur over the last, say, 8 years. Um, about 8 years ago, I was really in the go zone. You know, I was just doing everything. I'd largely through, because I do a lot of self-hypnosis, I repattern my own reality. I'd turn myself into somebody who could just keep going, right? I used to think I needed a lot of sleep. I decided I'd repattern that and find the me that could just keep going with no sleep. And
Yeah.
it seemed like a good idea at the time. I turned myself into this kind of Superman. And I suddenly, you know, before I used to be, I can't function without 8 hours sleep. It's like I can function on any amount of sleep.
Mm.
And I convinced myself it was true. And it was true for a time.
Yeah.
You know, it became true. So I stacked up months and months and months of work with no gaps. I was literally working all weekend, all week, no days off, nothing. I was, you know, I was not worried too much about sleep, you know, getting as much. And it was all good. And then I got this flu. And I've had flu before, and flu's often not nice, but this flu was something else. It was on another level, and it ended up having secondary complications. So I got like secondary infections going on in my lungs and stuff. And it got so bad, I had to seek medical treatment with it. My wife dragged me in, and I had got my lungs scanned, and I got put on heavy antibiotics because uh, I was screwed. But I was like, oh, that's good. Now I can get over the flu and I can get back on with what I was doing before.
Mhm.
Take me maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of weeks tops to get back over the flu. I got back into my work schedule quite quickly, but things were different. And I was trying to do this stuff and trying to do this stuff. And I started to like basically kind of just crack up and get really out of control. And I can't even describe what was going on. I couldn't think straight. I felt like I had, I just felt like I couldn't do anything anymore, but I just kept pushing myself.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had clients who were with dropped recovery. I had like, PTSD
Mhm.
issues and that kind of thing. I didn't want to drop those clients as a kind of lifeline for them. I wanted to carry on seeing them. In the end, and we just moved to Edinburgh. So we had people staying with us all the time. I wasn't even getting any downtime in the evening. And I just was just losing it. I couldn't think straight. I was in a horrible state. I felt like I had no energy, nothing. I was getting banging headaches all the time. My wife intervened and she contacted Rock Recovery and said, James will be stepping back for a while, right?
Mhm.
Because there was no way I was going to step back, but I needed to. And I was like, it's all right. I'll take a couple of weeks off. I'll be back on it. No, no.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've been quite the same since. And I had another instance since then. And this was about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. I don't know. It was the second bout of COVID that I got. And I got it at the UK Hypnosis Conference. So I think it was not last year, not the year before, but the year before that,
Okay.
right? I got COVID off the back of that. And
I think that's when I first
then,
met you, by the way. That's the UK hypnosis convention.
right, right. It might well be. And I yeah, I got COVID and I was really unwell for about 8 or 9 months
Hmm.
afterwards. And when I say unwell, what was going on for me in terms of symptoms, way after the COVID had gone, was a lot of really heavy headaches, like migraines. It was like having a migraine much of the time. Complete brain fog. I was not able to speak in the way that I used to be able to speak. I couldn't find words. I was
Yeah.
stumbling over my word. Um, I had no energy, and I had this really interesting thing. I say interesting; it wasn't nice, but it's kind of interesting. It, if I'd have had this conversation with you back then, I'd have had to go lie down for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So I was getting like I'd like have the way I described it was like I'd have a terrible hangover from having a
Mhm.
conversation. So I had to cut right back on my work, my one-on-one clients, because if I was going to see a client, I could do it, but I'd be done for the rest of the day.
That's what fibromyalgia can feel like as well.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You know, now I was getting pretty desperate about this because I'm like, I can't work. I can't, and I'm caught up in it. And because of the work that I do, I'm like, is this in my mind? Is this my mind making this?
Hmm.
Or is it my body? Or how much is my mind? How much is my body? Anyway, it went on. And here's what happened. My friend John came over in the summer and he came, we visited him, and I said, look, I'm not really great at the moment. This is what's going on for me. And he said, look, maybe it's your testosterone levels. So what are you talking about? He said, well, you're, I think I was 50 at the time. So a couple of years ago. He said, you're 50 years old, about that time. And I said, oh, come on, he's American. So like, they're all big and they're like all his friends are on TRT. And he said, like, my friends are on TRT and they all say it's great. So I go, maybe I could get it checked out. So I went to get my testosterone checked out and I had a male hormone profile done. Turned out my testosterone was within the normal range. It was in the bottom half of the normal range,
Hmm.
but it was within the normal range. And some people have said to me, yeah, but that's the NHS normal range. You want more. I don't know. But interestingly, my estrogen levels were way high,
Hmm.
right? So I was like, I've joked and say I went in fearing I'd be less of a man, but it turned out I was just more of a woman, you know. But it was kind of interesting. So my estrogen levels were way high, and I immediately looked into that, my estradiol particularly, and found out that you have this process called aromatization, which it turns testosterone into estradiol, the main form of estrogen that men use. So I looked at everything that I could find that would damp down aromatization, right? Aromatase activity. And I started eating a lot of cruciferous vegetables, having boron, zinc, um, shiitake mushrooms, grape extract, everything that would damp down that, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a miracle cure.
Really?
It was just like Jesus had come down and healed me, right? Within a week, I was just like, whoa, this is huge. This is massive. Um, and I still take a daily stack of supplements that, and I've changed my diet. So I have a lot of cruciferous vegetables. And for a long time I was paranoid. It's like, oh my God, if I can't eat right today, I'm going to collapse back,
Yeah.
but it really made a huge difference. Now, here's the thing. As I tell you this story, I don't even know if it's true. What I mean by that is I haven't got my hormones redone since, so I just don't know.
Yeah.
Right. I like to think it wasn't placebo because I tried other things. Up until that point, I've been doing all sorts of self-hypnosis, qigong, whatever. I don't know. Um, but I do think that what it made me do was look across the board and start to do everything that I could to restore my health, let's
Yeah.
say. So I was also doing a lot of qigong at the time. And I think that helped. I think all of these things helped. I was so desperate at one point, I was stood in Princes Street Gardens in Edinburgh, barefoot, thinking perhaps it's a grounding thing. Perhaps if I can just get my feet on the grass, it might make a difference. And I don't know. I can't say any one of these things made the difference, but all of these things have made a huge difference. I'm
I,
really,
yeah, I was
yeah,
just
go
sort
on.
of saying I did a similar thing, especially with grounding as well. And it's one of the first things that I was doing to try to get myself back to some kind of normality. But it's true. You don't know whether it's because you're sort of focusing your energy inwards rather than outwards about what you're doing. You've got to do this, you've got to do that, and caught up in all
Mm,
that and focusing all your energy, if you like, inwards, your mind inwards, and then because you're focusing inwards, changes then are able to happen. Um,
right. It's a complex system. So
yeah.
the thing about a complex system is there's no linear causality in a complex system,
Mm,
right? So like if you took just you and stuck you on an island and no other human beings around, we could say you were a biopsycho system,
mm,
right? Because there's no social.
no,
Uh, I would still argue that the social isn't, we are so socially wired that even the lack of a social environment is a social factor. Do you see what I mean?
yeah,
But let's pretend you could do that. Let's pretend we could isolate you as a psychological system, which we can't, but let's pretend we can. You are still a complex system,
yeah,
right? And the thing about complex systems is complex systems are systems that consist in interacting elements. Um, and those interactions are interdependencies. So these different elements affect each other in sort of networks and things. But the thing about a complex system is the interdependencies in the system are often, well, they are, this is the definition of a complex system, are unknown and very often unknowable.
yeah,
Right. So if you have a system where there's unknown and unknowable interdependencies, you can't control that system in a linear way. You can't go, oh, we've diagnosed this, and if we change this, this is going to happen. Because there's always an interaction of countless unknown variables, and you cannot know all of the variables. They are
yeah,
unknown. The best of modern medicine isolates some variables,
mm,
but it cannot know all the variables. They are unknown and unknowable, right? So if somebody finds themselves in a health crisis, like I remember somebody saying to me years ago, well, you have to change one thing at a time so you find out what the thing is that makes the difference. I'm like, maybe, maybe. or maybe you just try and do whatever's available to you. Maybe you take what's on offer and you hold in
Yeah.
your heart and in your mind, I'm going somewhere with this, right? And know that you're going to recover your health. I think this is an important thing. You know, if somebody believes they can recover their health,
Hmm.
um, then that becomes an attractor state in the future,
Yeah.
right? There's a old saying from Henry Ford, whether you think you can, whether you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, I think that this is one of the downsides sometimes with
Totally
some
agree with
people
that.
diagnosis, right? Say again?
I totally agree with that. That's what you said, Henry Ford
Right.
said.
Yeah, and I think maybe sometimes it's not like there's a magical cure. Sometimes it can be.
Mm.
Sometimes you can hit the right thing or the right combination of things or whatever, and you can get a major shift. But it's like, look, how committed am I to recovering my health or creating the kind of health that I want, the kind of energy levels that I want? I'm very careful about this because I want to make sure that when I set outcomes, what I call an attractor state in the future attractor state. You've got to have
Yeah.
a sense that there's something that you can move towards and you can have and you can attain in the future, and that you are on that journey to doing it, right?
Yeah.
I think if you stay on that, I've often said there's only one success strategy that actually works. Get in the game, stay in the game, learn, grow, and adapt,
Mm.
right? Now, that game could be the game of building a business, or it could be the game of building the kind of health and physicality that you want to have. The question is then, okay, so you get in the game, right? What is the game? I know what I want to create, right? I want to stay in the game. That means I'm going to learn about how I need to be, what kind of relationships I need
Yeah.
to change within myself, within my life. There's some trial and error, there's some experimentation, some readjustment, these sorts of things. And I'm going to learn and grow and adapt as I do it. And I'm going to find that way through. I often say this to clients because this is true for me. So I only speak my truths to clients. And I will often say, you know what's going on for you right now? There is a way through for you. There
Yeah.
is a way through for you. And I don't know exactly what that is because everybody's way through is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And in the end, we find our own way through. So the work that I'm doing with people is not to advise them on lifestyle choices and things like that. I'm not going to leave those discussions off the table, but I'm not an expert. I'm not like, right, here's what you want to try this particular supplement stack or whatever.
Yeah.
But I would encourage people to go and look in that direction. My job with people is to help them to and this is true with physical, apparently physiological health issues, right? And because there is no such thing as physiology on its own. You can't isolate physiology. You
No,
can't do it,
exactly.
right? So, yeah, I'm not saying there's no physiological elements in there, but they interact with, all sorts of other elements, sociological elements, psychological elements. So,
But
my
what's
job is
interesting as
psychology.
well, what you were saying, going back about yourself, and then
Mm,
you basically got these, well, these viruses, we've both ones of these horrific viruses. What's interesting is that a lot of people who have fibromyalgia follow the same kind of pattern of boom and bust. So they're kind of the
mm,
boom and bust people, just keep going, even if feeling not well enough, but just keep going. Don't want to let people down, and just keep going. And then basically then fibromyalgia is basically making them just stop. And it's
yeah,
similar to what you like with the virus; it made you stop, and then when you do stop, you can say, like you're saying, you can go different ways. But if you then stop and actually kind of look at yourself, look at what you're doing, and just rethink everything, and you can
mm,
then move forward like you did. And it's
right.
yeah,
I think
it's
it's
very
such an
interesting
important,
similarities.
right. There's a very important point there. Again, like when you're learning to do change work with people, to me, that's an endless journey. I'm still learning, right? I've been doing it for professionally for 20 years and I'm still learning things, but you sort of kind of start to see patterns over time, commonalities. Everybody's an individual except where they're not. You know, there's all these common sort of patterns that come out, which are maybe because we're human beings, or maybe it's because of the culture that I'm working in. But it's very common for people to come in with having a goal of getting back to something that they had that they feel they've lost.
Mm.
Right. And if I could just, if I could just get back to that time before this problem,
Mm.
this is a really common thing. And I always say there's no going back. There's only going forward. Right. I really want people to get this. There's no going back. There's only going forward. You are not going back to the past. It is not happening. You are going forward to a future. But what you're not seeing yet is this future may be very different, but can be infinitely more rewarding. And I'm not telling you to believe that, but I would invite you to be very much open to this possibility. Right.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I want people to get this because so looking at myself, I had an image of myself. I had a self-image. We all have a self-image, right?
Mm.
And the self-image seemed to be good. Back in the day, I was a self-image that I am a magician, right? I do magic in the world and all of this. And this was a deep self-image. Someone would go, "Oh, how juvenile, James." But that was the one that kept me showing up, creating with the world, whatever. That was me. This is the kind of person I am. I'm the person that does this.
Yes.
My self-image, my self-concept was predicated on being able to show up anywhere and do anything.
Mm.
And then actually, that turns out that's not very healthy, right? Because I wasn't resting. I
Mm.
wasn't looking after myself. I wasn't. And then so reality comes along and says, "Nah, James, I'm going to slow you right down. I'm going to smack you down for this one, right? You got to stop."
Yeah.
So, reality bites. And then coming out of that, it's like, okay, I have to rebuild my self-concept. I have to rebuild my self-image. What does this mean? Because I'm clearly not what I thought I was.
Mm.
So what am I now? Now, I happen to know enough about this because it's my profession to know, right, I have to build a new self-concept that is that I like. That's what self-esteem is, right? You have a
Yeah.
self-concept. You can go, oh, actually, that's pretty good. So I've got to build a new self-concept that I can feel good about, but is different from my old one and will serve me going forward, right? So that I can live into a different and better future. I've moved on from that phase of the past where I'm just the go, go, go guy. However great some of it might have been, there's a
Yes.
different future to live into now,
So I
right? And
suppose this is what real personal development actually is. It's about not trying to recreate, but to move forward. As you're saying, look at what you want to, where you want to be. What do you want to be in the future?
right. I think this is a huge thing. And I was working with a client the other day, actually. And it was the first session we'd done. And this client had seen a lot of therapists, seen all
Yeah.
manner of therapists, and was doing here's another pattern that you see sometimes, or I see sometimes. It's like, so you're my last hope. It's like, you know, so when people say that, I say, I'm not your last hope, but you have many hopes, and that hope exists within you, whether you know it or not yet. But so I want to like make sure that they know I'm not their last hope. They have many hopes, but I do want to be there and I do want to help them out. Um, but she's seen a lot of therapists, and she said to me, the conversation went round to a particular place, and she said, "Oh, actually, one thing that one of the therapists I saw said that was really good for me is that you become the adult you needed as a child."
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, I always listen to a particular organization of reality when somebody offers it. That's an organization of reality. I
Mm.
try it on. I go, where does that feel good and liberating and freeing? And where does it feel like restricting? So I listen to that. And if somebody offers something to you, by the way, this is like tips for change workers. that you might not agree with, but is apparently resourceful for them, avoid the temptation to smack it down, right?
Yeah.
Years ago, I never got that. I was like, somebody had offered an organization of reality that was doing something good for them. And I'd be
Yeah.
like, no, not that, this, right? So I learned not to do that. Now, there were some things that I was like, what I didn't like about this is you become past tense, you have become the adult that you needed as a child. I'm like, right, that doesn't fit with the work that we need to be doing, because one of the tenets of the work that I do is we are always becoming,
Mm.
right? We want to, I think this is one of the things about hypnosis that people miss is what is unique about hypnosis as a therapeutic intervention or as a change work intervention. It is fundamentally future focused. Right.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people go, but what about regression work? Yeah, but that's a later addition to
Mm.
hypnosis and hypnotherapy. If you go back to the origins of hypnotic work, and I would argue you can go back to different points, but I'm going to say the origins of modern hypnotherapy is Leopold and Bernheim with their suggestive therapeutics, right? I would argue
Okay.
that this is where it really shifts into being what we now look at. And everything was future focused. Everything was about what we call the post hypnotic suggestion,
Yes.
right? And post hypnotic suggestions are all about what's going to happen in the future after the hypnosis. Now, we don't have to be like blunt and basic and go, from now on, you will have amazing health. Every time you walk through a door, you realize your health is amazing. Right? That to me is a little bit simplistic. It's not overly nuanced. But if you take the idea of the post hypnotic suggestion, it is about the future we're living into,
Mm.
right? So a big part of doing hypnotherapeutic work is having people recognize, either consciously or unconsciously, there is a good future that they are living into, that they are becoming. So with this client, she said, you become the adult that you needed as a child. And I said, you know what? I said, that's great. I really like that. I said, well, at least half of me does, right? And I said, because there's another little element here. I said, I'm 52 years old, right? I get to play this age card now. I'm kind of liking it. I've got it, so I'll play it.
Yeah.
She's in her late 20s or early 30s, this client. So I said, I'm 52 years old. I don't want to be like, well, when you get to my age. I said, I'm 52 years old. And one thing I know is I ain't done yet, right? You know, I'm not even done growing up yet.
Yeah.
So the real question is, who am I still becoming?
Mm.
So maybe, I love that. But for me, it's more like you're becoming
Mm.
the adult you needed when you were a child. Now, the reason I took that reality that she had organized in a certain way, I knew it was resourceful for her, but I wanted to nuance it up. So it got rid of this idea that she had become and she was. Now there was this sort of stasis of who she was. And I wanted to
Yeah.
bring back to life that becoming. And that for her, that's around a specific area. But in a sense, it does not matter, in my view, whatever issue it is that you're looking to change, you're looking to make a difference with, it's a process of becoming what you are becoming. It's not a process of, well, we're just going to leave you just exactly as you are, but try and go back into the past and remove something that,
Mm.
to me, that's sort of, it doesn't create the right kind of, I'm going to sound like a hippie now, but sort of energetic context or the right dynamism for the
No.
context. I think, I think if people don't, when they're doing hypnosis or hypnotherapy, if they don't address this explicitly, if they don't look at is the client becoming, right? Are they living into the dynamics of becoming, or are they stuck in the dynamics of stasis, right? If you don't look at that explicitly, you won't notice it and you'll just do random work. And you'll probably find the random work works really well for people who are in the process of becoming, who
Mm.
are organized that way, and does nothing for the people who have organized themselves as stuck.
Yes.
That's my guess. And you'll wonder, why is it that works so well with that client, but not with that client?
Yeah.
Right. So I want to make sure whoever I'm working with, I'm tuning them into who they are becoming and what's possible for them in the future. And
Yes.
often this is delicate and implicit, not explicit, because if it's too explicit, they might reject it. So again, I want to be creating this this vibe. And genuinely, I want to say, now we are being explicit. One of the things I love about Erickson, who's the biggest influence on me, is right up until 1980 when he passed. And even more so, the later he got in his career, people would say, Dr. Erickson, can you help me with X? Can you help me with my insecurities? Or can you help me stop smoking? Or can you help me whatever? And Erickson would say, I don't know, but I am curious to find out what's possible for you. Right? Now, he was being honest. He doesn't know.
No.
And he is curious to find out what's possible because he knows that much is possible. So much is possible that we don't know is possible. So he's inviting people into the realm of possibility. Now, that is an important realm for all change. The enemy of change is certainty. And the realm of change is possibility. Right? If you come in to see me and you have a whole bunch of certainties about what's possible and what's not possible, we ain't got much to work with.
No.
Right? But if you're open to possibility, and more than just being open, if you start to become excited about possibility, curious about possibility, enlivened by possibility, now we've got some really good stuff to work with. And you get to find out who you're becoming. And of course, part of becoming means letting go of some things. So there's an old Taoist saying, which I rather like, which is in order to profit, you must invest in loss.
Yes.
And there's some things it's time to let go of. And some of the things we need to let go of maybe are old ideas about who we are or what we should be capable of or what we should and shouldn't be able to do and what's right and wrong in the world and all of this. I should have endless energy. I shouldn't have this problem. What is it that this problem's come to teach us? I like that frame. I use that a lot. There's a guy called Robert Keegan. And he says, sometimes you got to let the problem solve you instead of you trying to solve the problem, right?
Yeah.
So how is it that I need? A lot of people go, well, there's nothing wrong with me. If I just didn't have this problem, I don't need to change. I just need to get rid of this problem. Right. But you're in relationship with that problem, and who you are and how you are in relationship to that problem is part of what holds it in place. So if instead you go, how do I need to change? What needs to change in me in relation to this problem? So then the problem is kind of solving you, to use that clever bit from Robert Keegan.
Yeah.
But then when you change in relation to the problem is now no longer held within the same grip psychologically. So it releases and then the problem changes. So I think that's it. People go, I don't want to change. I want to change the problem. When you go, okay, I'm going to let the problem change me. And then the change in me changes the problem secondarily. That's often the way through. It doesn't mean you give up trying to, it doesn't mean you go, oh, this is how it's going to be now. I just need to change. It's not. You just need to learn to live with it, which is sucky advice. And I really hate. But what needs to change in your relationship, not just to the problem, but perhaps to yourself, perhaps to what is important in life and what's not important. What needs to readjust in the whole network of things in order for you to become free now to transcend that problem and go beyond and live into a better future, which may well include many of the symptoms that you've experiencing, maybe even all of them falling away and disappearing.
That's brilliant.
So there's all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I guess I can just say that with Fibro Freedom Therapy, for those of you out there, I'm very curious on how I can help you. So it's I think that's a great place to finish this interview. It's been absolutely amazing, James. It really has, truly insightful. Thanks so much for coming on this with me.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me, Mark. It's been an interesting exploration, and I'm sure it could go on indefinitely. But
I think it could
yeah,
do. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I suddenly just realised we're actually having. I'm recording this, and for an interview, I'm going to put onto YouTube. It felt
right.
like we're just having a chat there for a long while there. So, but yeah, it's been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think that's aside from that, I'll just say I think the best kind of podcasts and stuff are when people forget that's a podcast and it just gets into a conversation, So
Exactly. Yeah, and I hope
yeah.
everyone else has got something from this. I definitely advise watching a load of chunks of this again to take it in, because there's a wealth of information here. So thanks again, James.
Okay, appreciate that, Mark. Thank you very much for having me.